then they come for you.
The original Outlast game introduced me to the world of gaming horror. When it released in 2013, I was a broke high school student who was allowed to ask for one video game per year, because according to my parents, video games are killing brain cells or something like that. Now I can confidently say that video games did not kill my brain cells, except for maybe Dark Souls. But that was more because of the head injuries I probably got from banging my head against the wall. Because of the one video game a year rule, I didn't really get a chance to play Outlast until it was way cheaper in 2017, during my college years. The game absolutely blew my mind and soiled my pants. At the time, I played the game alongside a few friends and we took turns sitting in front of the monitor taking control of the keyboard. We were all too scared to play on our own, and in all honesty, I think that made the experience more fun. Fast forward to 2013 and I am lucky enough to be able to afford games that are more than $5. However, I'm still a cheapskate at heart and I hate spending money, but I do love video games. So today, we will be discussing my first impressions of the latest Outlast entry. This time, a co-op one. Let's explore from the cheapskate perspective if this game is worth throwing cash at. We got to test this game on two different machines. One with the NVIDIA RTX 4090 and one with the NVIDIA GTX 980. You would not believe how smooth this game ran on both machines, especially considering it is currently in the early access stage. In an age where AAA game developers are struggling to release polished games, it's nice surprise to have an unreleased title work as well as this does. I also played this in an ultra-wide resolution, which also surprisingly worked well, which is very rare for early access titles. Usually, I wouldn't stress an early access title so hard, but immersion is a large part of any horror experience, and bugs can really detract from how much fun there is to be had. It's important to note that while my personal experience was bug-free, this may not be the case for everyone, since PC builds can vary heavily. Based on my playthrough, I can confidently say that the game's early access version is impressively stable and free of major issues. This level of stability for a title that has multiplayer compatibility and hasn't even fully released really makes me appreciate the developers and the engineers who've worked on this. I don't know how they did it, but the game definitely has fewer bugs than the coffee my ex-girlfriend used to make me. Let's talk about the bad first. Well, it's not really even that bad, just subpar. The co-op character models' faces don't really look all that great. It's especially surprising when the enemies and mini-bosses truly steal the show with their incredibly detailed and well-designed appearances. While I wouldn't necessarily say that the character models are downright ugly, I also wouldn't say that they look any better than the ex-girlfriend I talked about in the previous section. Another disappointing factor is the level of customizability you get for your character. Whilst there are some pre-rendered faces, hairstyles, and outfits to choose from, customization isn't as deep as I would like for it to be. Circling back to the enemies, each boss and mini-boss is crafted with meticulous attention to detail, which makes every encounter feel genuinely poop-inducing. Even the scary tutorial lady looks amazing. Wait, amazing's not the right word. She looks horrible, but like in a good way? You guys know what I mean. The environment is another standout aspect. The tight hallways and rooms are brought to life with stunning lighting effects, creating an eerie atmosphere, similar to the one created in that movie Saw. Y'all remember that movie and how gory it was? Yeah, that movie would be like watching little Einsteins compared to this game. You will have to navigate past bodies that have so much fruit punch coming out of them that you would wonder if it's even possible for the human anatomy to hold so much juice. The experience is heightened when you come across spaces so dimly lit that walking through without any charge in your night vision goggles will make you want to alt-tab out of the game. The phenomenal graphics contribute significantly to the game's ability to immerse you in its fruit punch-soaked world. From the detailed enemy designs to the expertly crafted environments, the visual elements work really well together. You can tell that the artists for this game probably had to watch as many no-no films as the artists for The Last of Us. This game made me clench a specific part of my body so tight I thought I was about to create a new black hole. The gameplay loop is quite captivating for a co-op title. After soiling yourself through the tutorial section, you will be led into a social hub area. This area does nothing new as it's very similar to social hubs in many other online games. But I do believe in this specific genre, survival horror, there aren't as many titles with a hub area. Please let me know if I'm wrong about that, as I'm curious if this has been done before in a survival horror title. Similar to games like Destiny, this hub area serves as a transition between missions, known as trials. Trials. This hub area fulfills its purpose well by providing a space for players to interact with their friends, challenge said friends to arm wrestling, and even customize their characters. You can also personalize your room, which in conjunction with the small size offers only a small amount of customization. Don't expect to have a building tool similar to games like Fallout 4. When you're ready to launch up a trial, the host of the party can approach a terminal to select the desired level. Initially, many levels are locked, but as you progress and complete trials, more missions will become available. These trials feature a mix of main and optional objectives, which offers a decent variety of challenges. For example, the first trial requires you to activate generators, eliminate an NPC, and locate scattered posters throughout the map. If you have played previous Outlast games, this might not sound super innovative, but this couldn't be further from the truth. The newly added co-op mechanics change up the gameplay significantly. You have to depend on your friends for a large portion of the trials, and communication is key to a successful run. Towards the end of the first trial, your team is tasked with electrocuting a certain NPC. This means standing by a switch and holding it down until the NPC is dead. The challenge is that during this part of the trial, there are some mini-bosses who are quite aggressive, and the only way to complete the objective is to have one of the team members lead the mini-boss elsewhere while you hold down the switch. Have I mentioned this game is gory? Because yeah, you literally have to torture this poor dude to death because someone on the intercom is telling you to. The difficulty in this game lies in your ability to communicate with your team, because it's pretty easy to end up dead, and if the entire team dies, you fail the trial and will have to start over. You can take on each level in a team of 2, 3, or 4 players. The more players, the easier the game will be. There are some mechanics meant to aid you, such as items you can find scattered across the map. Each item serves a unique purpose, such as health regeneration or reviving downed teammates. Discovering and strategizing with these items adds a good amount of depth to the gameplay and allows for different approaches to overcome challenges. For example, I have learned to always keep a battery on hand just in case I end up having to navigate through a very dimly lit area. I think the developers have found a good balance between giving the player some room to strategize, but also not making things too easy, since you can only hold a total of 3 items. After completing the main objectives, you will have the option to leave the trial, or stay and try and complete some of the optional objectives. Successful completion awards bonus XP, whereas failure results in a big old F, netting you a smaller amount of XP. The missions can prove to be very challenging for players who are not familiar with other Outlast games, and especially challenging for players who do not know how to communicate well. Speaking of communication, maybe think twice before playing Outlast Trials with your partner. The game is basically like a session of couples counseling, except the therapist is a sadistic game designer and you and your partner are depending on each other to stay alive. As a cheapskate, I am always trying to make sure that whatever game I buy will have a decent amount of replayability. Outlast Trials definitely passes this section. The tutorial took me about 40 minutes, but I took it super slow, and I suspect it should take an average gamer only about 20 minutes tops. When it comes to the trials themselves, as long as your team is not filled with geniuses and speedrunners, it should take about 45 minutes or longer to beat each trial. As of this recording, there are a total of 4 different maps, but like I've said before, the game is still in early access, so there's a good chance they will add more during or after the full release. According to the popular website howlongtobeat.com, initial player polls state that the average playtime is around 18 hours. Add to this the amount of replayability the game has, and you have yourself a game that is a great bang for your buck. Longevity and post-release support is an important aspect of any game for a frugal fiend like myself. Considering this game's bug-free state and even early access, my guess is that the game will be heavily supported up until and even after release. Keep in mind this is just a speculation since no roadmap has been released, and I really looked, but Red Barrels doesn't have any kind of roadmap out there. This is quite disappointing as I would like to know what I'm getting into when purchasing an early access title. That being said, based on my analysis of the trailers, it seems like some unreleased maps are in the works, as I would be very surprised if they stuck with only 4 maps for the entirety of the game's lifecycle. As someone who has watched countless YouTube videos explaining the lore of the original Outlast game, I was super excited to see what this new release had in store. As soon as you launch up the game, you will be treated to an amazing, gore-filled, high-budget cutscene that will make you want to vomit right onto your keyboard. This is about the extent of straightforward world building. Of course, there is some lore that is drip-fed to you as you progress, but it's nothing as deep as the original single-player game. And to be fair, this design choice makes sense since this is meant to be a co-op experience experience. That being said, I can't really help but be disappointed in how little I am getting when it comes to lore. If you are coming to this game specifically looking for a story-heavy experience, you are looking in the wrong place. That's like walking into a grocery store expecting to walk out with a girlfriend. It's possible, but it shouldn't be what you're looking for. Outlast Trials is $30 for its early access period. This price will be going up after the full release. For many people, this might be a high point of entry for a game that's less than 20 hours long. As a cheapskate, for every game I look at, I provide a cheaper alternative for the frugal fiends out there who want a similar experience at a discounted price. Today's highlight is an indie title called Devour. This game sits at $5 on Steam and has a total of 5 levels. Each level has a good amount of co-op oriented challenges and will take the average gamer's multiple tries to beat. If you're looking for some cheap thrills, this is probably the best legal way to get it. Now, if we're talking about cheap thrills without no boundaries, then I can probably recommend. If you are a fan of survival horror and co-op experiences, it's going to be hard to find a better game at this price point. This early access release of the Outlast Trials is a cheap enough entry point for those who do not want to wait for or pay for the more expensive full release. Although I can't say with certainty what the final price of this game will be, I can say that this game is polished enough to jump into right now while the price is low. Considering how much playtime I will be getting with the base game and adding on the replayability, $30 doesn't seem so bad. As a cheapskate, I'm always looking for the best bang for my buck, and this game is a certified big bang.